Karen Dobres, welcome to Sports Management Podcast.
Thank you very much, Marcus. It's a pleasure to be here.
I am very excited to talk to you. We'll talk a lot about women's football, soccer, Lewes FC, and your career and how you ended up in sports and many more things. So really excited.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for those of you who might not know, you are a volunteer at Lewes FC. You're also a previous board member of the club, a community owner of the club. You're an equality activist, rider, and much more. So let's dig into some of these things.
Okay, so my career has, gone in a funny way, really, and I never expected to end up in football because essentially I never liked football. But yeah, I guess I started off wanting to be a journalist, actually. And I was working for the Essex Chronicle, which is a newspaper umbrella of newspapers in a county in England. And while I was there, a friend of mine took his own life, and I just moved there, and I didn't know what to do. I was profoundly upset by it, and I called the Samaritans, and they were amazing. And they actually told me to come over for a cup of tea, which I did. And I ended up being a volunteer for the Samaritans at night, listening on their phones. I got great training there, and I decided I liked what I was doing at night better than I liked my day job at the newspapers. So I went back to London to train to be a therapist, to do it properly. And I went back to fashion modeling then, which I had done before, in order to pay for my therapy training, and which was very expensive, I have to say. If you're thinking of going to therapy, you need some money to pay for your training. And so I had this kind of, time, 3 years training, where I was modeling to pay for it, and then trying to get my client hours up with voluntary therapy and working for different groups. Then I got a job as a therapist within the music industry, working for Polygram Records and all of their different record companies and all of their employees in multi-site organization, which I did for some time. Then after I had children, I continued a private practice of therapy. Then I moved from London to Lewes, where my husband, who has always liked football, became very involved in Lewes Football Club, which is, where we are now. And he was one of a group of 6 men fans who mutualized the club back in 2009, so that it became, because it was about to become financially unviable. There was a high court, winding up order on the club, and they bought it for £1, and they paid off all the debts, and then invited the community to become owners. And to this day, you can buy 1 share in Lewes FC, and you get 1 vote with that share as to who should be on the board, and you get the right to stand for the board, and you get all sorts of other amazing benefits to owning this very special football club. And now, we have 2,500 owners in 42 countries around the world, even one in Fiji now, which is amazing. That some of these people probably never come to England, but if they do, they're so welcome to watch a match at Lewes Football Club. So anyway, sorry, back to your question about my career. I didn't like football. Right? I had never liked football. I thought football was men's football for a start, because all I saw of football was men on the TV or men in the back pages of newspapers. And I'd been to 2 men's matches in my life. Both matches were full of kind of men beating their chests and shouting and swearing and drinking a lot of beer. And I didn't really feel safe in those atmospheres. And I didn't know the rules of football, because at school it was the boys that played, not the girls. Never been taught, never had much interest. In fact, the opposite, I stayed away. But, in 2016, my husband, who was on the board, and another director called Ed Ramsden, so let me name check them, Charlie Dobres and Ed Ramsden, said to me, "You're a feminist," because I am a self-declared feminist, very happy to say so. I think, anyone that believes in equality is a feminist. You're a feminist. What would you say if we said we were going to pay the women at Lewes FC the same as the men. Now, I didn't even know that women played football at Lewes FC, right? And I said I would say, what, women play football? And then I would say, what, and you don't pay them the same? So I knew nothing, right? I knew nothing about the economics of football, the way football is geared towards men, male football privilege, any of these things. I knew nothing then. And I know, 6 years later, I've had like a crash course in football, running a football club and sexism, and never the twain shall meet, or always the twain shall meet, actually. So I said, no, I must go down and watch these women play football. And I went to the women's football match on my own, and it was nothing like what I had imagined, a football match was. Not only were these women playing on the pitch, but also I was buying a cup of tea, I was drinking my cup of tea, I was chatting to the people next to me who I didn't know, and it was very pleasant and exciting as well. And there was something more than that, though. And that thing was that, at that point, my daughter was 17 and my son was he must have been 14. And my daughter was or is a very intelligent young woman. Of course she is. But she and her friends would be in my kitchen and they'd be having really quite high level conversations, issue-based conversations, whether that was about gender pay gap or abortions or climate change or politics, any of those things. And then I'd see them on public social platforms like Instagram and Facebook and things like that. And it was like they were different people. Like they weren't themselves. They were kind of trying to fit into a very old-fashioned notion of kind of, the male gaze and what a female might be supposed to look like in a nightclub mirror at 3 a.m. when you're posing, So I kind of thought, young women need to see this product. Young women need to see women's football. Young men need to see it as well. And we need to change society through this antidote to all of the sexist guff that goes on around us. And I saw there were 100 people there at the ground that day. But I felt, when I walked home, I felt that I had a massive experience. I felt taller in myself and bigger in myself in terms of being a woman, walking home, 10 minutes walk, 15 minutes walk home, to be fair, better. And I just knew there were so many more women like me who didn't know they were welcome at a football club and didn't know this product that was available to them. And I wanted to let them know about it. And that's when it all started.
Oh, it's a great story. And is the possibility for social change what drove you to Lewes FC, or that was, that you saw that they had the ability to help help change?
Yeah, it was both. I mean, I could see not only was women's football, did it feel different for me to watch as a woman than men's football did? Of course, because, when they were taking a ball to their chest or, or heading it, I imagined myself doing that in a way that I don't when I watch men play football. And I think, so I felt more close to the game. And I think the feeling of closeness would mean that it could change something in me. It could make me stronger in myself. And therefore, and going against all those stereotypes, that tell us that women should be passive and, go with the flow, not make decisions themselves and use their bodies as decorations rather than as instruments that they can, positively move things with. I mean, I don't know how to say it, but it's a really different view of yourself if you're a woman when you watch women play a team sport like that in public, and where they're focused together on the ball and they're being strong and they're being powerful. It's a really different view from the way you normally see yourself reflected back at you in society as a woman. So it's definitely, I saw that it was a vehicle for social change, yes, and that this product was more than a game. It had the potential to influence hearts and minds way, way beyond the football pitch.
Yeah, and you mentioned that there, that football can, you have said before also that football can have more meaning than being just a game.
Yeah.
And that is, you know, the greatest importance to you here.
Oh, completely. I think, you know, I consume football differently than my husband or my son. Okay, I consume it partly because I now understand the rules and know the game. I didn't at first. I know how to chant now. I didn't, you know, at first I didn't know the rules, the culture. And I do think, you know, that partly we've created a culture as well. It's different than in the men's game. But I think that I enjoy that aspect of it. I enjoy the community of it. And I enjoy the excitement and stress sometimes of, you know, are we going to win? But what keeps me going between matches is the idea that we are actually changing the world for women and girls, and therefore for boys and men, by presenting women in this way. And that is definitely, if I had to think how much of a percentage it was, I would say that was more of a percentage even than the football for me, although it's hard to separate them both. But I would say it was probably 60-40, you know, or maybe 70-30, I don't know. But yes, to answer your question, that's a massively important part of my enjoyment.
Purpose,
you know, purpose is so important.
Yeah, definitely. You have also said that you associated football with negative things. What sexism we have mentioned? Are there other negatives that you saw with the game of football?
Yeah, thank you for researching me, Marcus. I appreciate it. Other negative things, yes. Well, I think it's run in a corrupt way, and I think it's run in an unfair way a lot of the time. Like you know, now since I've been learning about football, I've learned that most football clubs in England, in say the Premier League, don't even make a profit. They're not even viable businesses, you know. Whereas at Lewes Football Club, I understand that we, on the women's side, we bring in more sponsorships than Arsenal women. We have to, because we have to make it work. We don't have, you know, the possibility of revenue coming over from our men's side, like, you know, a club like Arsenal does. So yeah, I mean, I associate football also with, unfortunately, all the isms that we have in our lives. So, for example, racism, homophobia. You know, sadly, I've been on LGBTQ plus panels, and gay men have said to me that they couldn't hold hands at a men's football match, and I understand why, because I've been to men's football matches at a higher level than our men play at. But at our matches, because we're community owned, we try to cultivate a certain culture there that we don't have those isms. So, and I don't say that lightly, because I know it's a big thing to say, so I'm going to illustrate it. But the fact that we all own the club, so at any game you'll have people in the crowd that actually own the football club. Probably, you know, a large portion of people in the crowd will actually own it. And I always say it's like my front room. If you're going to drop a Snickers wrapper in my front room, I'd like you to pick it up and put it in the bin. The same at the Dripping Pan, you know, that's the name of our ground. The same at the Dripping Pan. So I've been at the Dripping Pan, and I've had away fans say at a men's match, oh, he's gay, isn't he? He's gay. And I'll be like, well, what's your issue with that? Whether he's gay or not is of no relevance to you whatsoever. And basically, when you're here, we're all human beings together. We won't have isms. If you've got them, please leave, you know. And I like to have conversations with people, though, and ask them to unpack what it is that they're saying, because quite often people don't know that I'm a director or was a director. And, you know, there'll be men, usually male away supporters, to be honest with you. And I'm very happy to tell them that, and then have a conversation about whatever it is that they've just said, call them out. But yeah, I associate football with those things, but we're doing it differently. you know, in many ways. We're community owned, we do equality, we split the playing budgets equally, the women play on the same pitch as the men, they get the same resources, we campaign for the anti-gamblification of football, because we don't think gambling should be associated with a sport that young people enjoy, young kids enjoy. And we have our Call Him Out campaign on the men's side. We realize we're all in a soup together. But like Gandhi said, we've got to be the change. So all of us need to take responsibility, each and every person that comes to the dripping pan, whether they're a player or a fan, an owner, a coach, a member of staff. And we have to take responsibility for the fact that, you know, this is how we want our lives to be. So we will act accordingly and look after each other.
Yeah. So when I said that associating football with negative things, this was more from your explanation now, was from men's football. How is your experience now with regards to the isms, homophobia that you have experienced from the women's games? Is that completely different?
It's different. That's why when you said associate football with negative things, it really is on the men's side that I currently associate more negative things, I suppose, with the more mature product that's been around for years and unfortunately has developed along this very, very commercial trajectory that has, I think, lost some of its humanity. But on the women's side, I do see it very differently. I think, you know, when you come to not just at the dripping pan, because by the way, at the dripping pan, the men's matches are very joyful as well. There is a different culture and a different gender mix, but because it's Lewes FC and we have a certain kind of culture there that we've cultivated, the matches aren't, you know, they're great, to be honest. I really enjoy them. But with generally speaking, women's matches are more, I would say, joyful than men's, because joy is the word I use to describe them. And what I find is that because women are going against those kind of stereotypes, not plugging into them, not emphasizing them or magnifying them, we're going against those stereotypes that say people should be in their box, you know, they should be this type of a woman or that type of a man. Because we're going against them, we're attracting people who are diverse, you know. So we're very inclusive. We try to represent and visibly show, you know, that everybody is welcome, and I can get to that in a minute, at the club. And therefore we're attracting people who maybe don't feel comfortable in very kind of straight, formal, you know, dominant male environments. We have lots of families. We have plenty of gay people from the LGBTQ plus community, let's say. And we have women. We have women who don't know much about football and who don't know the rules and things. So we have unusual, you know, chants, or we have the odd, we definitely have oat milk because we know people are going to want it in their latte. Do you know what I mean? And we have Prosecco on tap and things like that. We have a lot of fun. And I don't know, it doesn't feel judgy and it doesn't feel threatening.
Yeah,
and it's like a party. Yeah,
it's so funny that you said that, because I was talking to Victoire Kodjevina. I don't know if you're aware of her, from One Football. And she was saying that like you can make small changes. And she said like offering oat milk latte was like something that she mentioned as one thing that
she got that from me at the Athens Women's Football Summit.
Yes, is that true?
Yes. I was saying about the changes that we've made, you know, as we've attracted more women into the crowd, and we've had to think about what it is that they're asking for and what it is that they want, but what it is that would make them feel at home. Like, this is a place for them to relax, you know. It's not a place that's really just about men and they're fitting in somehow, but this is a place where there are oat milk lattes.
That's hilarious. And yes, shout out to her. She recently got married, and I think that they are awaiting a child as well. So all the best to her.
Oh, absolutely. She's amazing.
For sure. Yeah, so let's dig in a little bit more about Lewes FC. You are famously known for the equality initiatives that was set in place in 2017. You have mentioned a little bit about it. But what does this exactly mean? We're talking, you have equal pay, but you also have, same marketing spend and so forth. So can you just break this down for us, please?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so first of all, Equality FC is about splitting the playing budgets down the middle and giving exactly the same resources to the men and the women. So it's about creating a level playing field for women. But, it's very easy to say that. And people don't realize what a struggle it's been, because it really has. So I told you that, people can stand to be on the board of Lewes FC. Any owner can put themselves forward, and then there's a democratic election amongst all of the owners as to who should sit on the board, as to what they can bring to the board, what they can add. So when these two directors, Charlie and Ed, stood for re-election in 2016-17 elections, they said, if you elect us, we will introduce equality. We will be working towards that. And that's what you're voting for. So they got re-elected, and the decision to raise the women's budget actually to meet the men's, and that's important so the men didn't lose out. That was made by the board, but it was not a unanimous decision. It was a majority decision. And that's reflective of the fact that some people said, no, the women don't get the same crowds as the men. Why should we give them the same budget? It's not fair. They don't deserve it, right? Which is, we can sort of understand that logic, but actually it's not a fair argument when you consider the history of football and the fact that women's football was banned for 50 years in this country. It was also banned in Sweden, I believe, and in various major footballing countries, Brazil, Switzerland, all around the world. It was banned at different points. In our country, it was banned from 1921 to 1971, giving men's football a monopoly over, if you think about that period of time, over broadcasting rights, because that's when TV started to become popular, sports on TV, and crowds and merchandising and everything. Was all just available for men. And at the point when it was banned in this country, which was 1921, women's football actually attracted greater crowds than men's football did. So this is a really important, and it was just after the war, and the FA decided that in order for the men to improve their gate figures, they needed to stop the women playing and kind of reassert gender norms in the country after the war, make sure that women were making the babies and bringing them up at home again and out of the factories again, and that men were having recreation time and football to follow outside of their work time. They wanted to re-establish that. So women's football was banned, and the passions and dreams, obviously, of lots of women and girls around the country were completely squashed in a 15-minute meeting. The reason they said it was gynecological. They said it was like really bad for women to play football. But actually we've thought about that a lot, as you can imagine, over the years. And we've thought, actually, I think it's a bit more dangerous for men to play, given where all the appendages are. But anyway, that aside, they banned women for 50 years. And so basically, when people say the women don't get the same crowds as the men, they're ignoring the fact that for 50 years and for some time afterwards, because no extra resources were put into women's football when it was unbanned by the FA, men have had a massive head start. You look around recreational parks, it's a bit better now, but it's boys who are playing football, not girls. It's boys who are developing in this way and who are, the girls and women are way behind, and therefore they need more resource, never mind the same. If it was up to me, it would be Equity FC, right? Not Equality FC. We give them more. But anyway, at that point, we were asking for just the same. And that's what we do. And basically, we had to take a business decision that was a risky decision, because it was based on the fact that if we do this, more sponsors will come in, and we'll get more owners, and that will make up the revenue that we are personally, because it was directors that personally put the money in to up the women's budget and make a quality FC. And the risk was that, you know, maybe the world's not ready, you know, maybe we're the first club in the world that does this, but no one supports. That wasn't the case. It was a good decision. It was a good risk. We immediately made international headlines around the world. We immediately got more owners. It took a while for sponsors to come on board, I'll be honest, but they did. And now we're where we are now, with 2,500 owners in 42 countries around the world. We have, you know, in 2 seasons after the introduction of Equality FC, our women's gate quadrupled, so that it was almost as high as our men's. And now our averages, our mean gate figures, are more or less aligned. And we've been incrementally increasing the price of the women's ticket. And last season, both tickets were the same price. So, you know, we've come a long way. It hasn't been easy. We've done things wrong. We've done things right. We feel like guinea pigs a lot of the time. But, you know, I always, there's no more amazing place to be, honestly, than the dripping pan, when you know that the people that you're watching on the pitch are being paid fairly, and everyone that's watching kind of agrees with that and wants to change the world with it.
Amazing. If we talk a little bit more about the criticism that falls over women's football and why it should not be equally paid and so forth, I think that the spectator argument have kind of fallen, since now, I mean, women's soccer or football is selling out stadiums left and right, and, you know, they're breaking records every day, basically. But I would say that the most common argument is the performance on the pitch is one, and also the sponsorship money that comes in, that the men generates more money, therefore it's fair that, you know, if there is a percentage, the men will be paid more. What is your thoughts on those two sides?
Well, in terms of, like, I think when you say about the quality of the game on the pitch, you mean that the men are more exciting to watch, or more pacey, faster? Is that what the argument is?
Yes, that's what I would say, that many people use as an argument, that it's quote unquote better football, that they are faster, stronger, shoots harder, and so forth.
Well, I mean, you know, I would say to the people that say that, and absolutely, plenty of people have said that to me on social media. You know, I get messages when I put things up on Instagram or Twitter, and, you know, plenty of people say that to me, and you know, they're very, very welcome to go and watch men's football. Why, you know, please do. What I would say is, personally, from my point of view, I enjoy men's football now. I enjoy watching Lewes FC men really a lot, but I enjoy women's football probably more. And the reason for that is that I feel close, as I said, I feel closer to the game. I can imagine myself in it, and I feel like the technical things that they do, the set pieces, I understand why they're doing them. And because I follow my team, you know, I understand when they're going to do them. And you know, I find that very exciting. And I also, as I think we've touched on earlier, I prefer the atmosphere in the stadium. So, you know, I would pay more, so definitely pay more to watch a women's match than a men's match. I know I'm weird, right, at the moment. I think things are going to change. I think there's going to be more weirdos like me that come in maybe through the women's game and then start to enjoy the men's game too. But at the moment, I suppose the loudest people are the more, you know, the majority who are the consumers of football, who are men and male fans, and they see it through their own point of view. You know, they see it. It's funny, they just see their opinion as being a fact. It's the way that they describe their experience on social media. It's like no one else could have that experience, a different experience. And I always find it weird. It's like, I always say to them, this is, you know, Dave, Joe, Derek, Tony, whatever your name is, this is your opinion. Yeah. I have a different opinion, you know, and let's see how these things progress, because I believe women's football is an immensely untapped market with so much potential and so much room for growth, not just off the field, not just, you know, commercially, but also on the field. We're going to see these women But, you know, as women start earlier and earlier to train and become professional at an earlier age with professional coaches and professional medical help, we're going to see, you know, the next, the female Messi emerge soon. And we're going to see these people, and it's not, yeah, just give them a bit of time. But personally, I'm very happy the way it is now. I really enjoy watching women play football for 100 billion reasons. And yes, they're maybe not the same reasons as some of the people that criticize it, but, you know, each to their own.
But then talking about the fandom, because you mentioned that there are fans in the Dripping Panda, they don't know the rules, they share at the wrong time, and so it seems like you are attracting a different target group. So you are not actually, call it, competing or attracting the same fans as another men's team, for example. That's how I see it.
True. Yeah, I think that's true. I think that you know, we do have fans that completely cross over. They support the club, they come to men's and women's matches. But we have, you know, what I've called unwelcome women. So women who didn't like football, like myself, who have come to it via equality. And those women, you know, football virgins, they come in, and that's what they call themselves, and they don't know the rules of the game. They don't, you know, so what we've done is we've had pre-match chanting practice, for example. So we have a very loud fan called Donna, who's at most matches, who kind of, you know, because we're called the Rooks. And you know, after the birds that nest around the pan, and also the castle that's in our town and on our badge is a rook, obviously on a chessboard. And we sing, we will rook you, you know, or we are the Rooks from Lewes Town. And we have a band at the women's matches quite often, a little brass band made from the men's vets team, actually. So the men come support the women. And there's a lot of chanting goes on. Children, new fans, they join in. It's a way of feeling included. It's a great way of feeling part of things, you know. And quite often, something we do at Lewes, you know, that when the away goalie throws or kicks a ball in and everyone kind of goes, "You're," and they say shit, right? Horrible word. And they say that. We have the word mediocre, right? So we have mediocre, and we have signs up. So little girls will run with those parts of the word in front of the crowd behind the goalie. And that's what I would say was typical Lewes, right? We're saying mediocre instead of shit. And we're having, and then we all laugh because it's just so funny. So these are people that are kind of slightly taking the mickey out of, you know, this toxic male environment and turning it around with humor and having a laugh while we're doing it and still enjoying the game. So it honestly, I can't describe this atmosphere brilliantly enough, because it's magical. It's magical. It's kind of so disruptive and so, in a way, so against the grain, but so brilliant. It's like alchemical. Something goes on at the Dripping Pan that is just, I honestly think we're going to change the world. I'm not even joking. But so there's that's all kind of going on. But we run this evening for new fans at the Rook Inn, our clubhouse, called The Offside Rule and All That Jazz. And what that is we have a woman player, or last season we had Nat Haig, amazing assistant women's manager, explaining the rules of the game. And we say no questions too silly. And, you know, when I first suggested this this evening to the board, the men on the board said, "Oh, I'll come and explain the rules to them. I'll come." And I said, "No, it has to be a woman. It has to be a woman that explains the rules, because then we're at risk of mansplaining, and that's what we don't want to do to our new women fans, you know." So we have these amazing new women fans of football, and we don't want to put them off by suddenly sort of doing this weird power game on them, right? We want to make sure that they feel very at home, very welcome, and that we explain things nicely. We also have, similarly, we have men come to our especially our women's matches, but also our men's matches, who have been put off by, you know, the kind of environment we described earlier, Marcus, you know, with men being kind of really tribal. They've been put off that. So they come to Lewes FC because they know that they're not going to get that. In fact, you know, we didn't win. We were voted the best of in the 100 best British football grounds to visit. We actually got number 1, right? Voted for by away fans in this amazing book by Mike Bailey, Bayly. And we didn't know we were going to get number 1, but the pull quote is the only ground where you can eat hummus in the terraces and not be laughed at. I love it, right? Because that sums it up. That sums up what we're about. You come, you're not going to be laughed at. You're going to have a laugh.
Yeah, because when I feel like obviously, like we have in Sweden right now, there is an issue with hooliganism, and obviously I'm strongly against that. But I really feel strongly that the fandom is important to sports. So just to find the combination there, to have fans at the stadium that's supporting the team and they are emotional and but in a good way, but not tipping over that line to becoming insulting or all the isms or dangerous. Because now here we're talking about, can you bring your kid to a game? Is it too dangerous? I mean, when we are there, then that's so wrong. So
it's a fine line, Marcus, isn't it? It's a fine line. We don't want to take away people's emotional engagement and enjoyment and the kind of whole gamut of emotions that people run through at matches. They should be able to express it, no doubt, right? And I would never want to take that away. And some of the chants are rude, and I think we can have that, right? We can have that, as long as they're not really either targeting a person because of a characteristic that they cannot change, or they're targeting a person personally too much in a negative way, because we don't want that. It's unfair. And it's, I think most of us, people go, oh, how do I know where the line is? How do I know, what's okay, what isn't? Check yourself. Listen to yourself. It's not hard. Think about your context. Think who's listening to you, how many kids are around, it's not that hard. And we have a lot of families, we have a lot of kids, and we also have very well-behaved dogs, and they're very welcome.
Happy to hear.
I know.
I would like also to talk to you about male allies and the importance there. And you mentioned before that the one board member wanted to explain the rules and you didn't want to because the risk of mansplaining. I hear that point, but also I feel like it's really important that because I want women's football, and the same as men's football should be having women's fans. I think it's really important that women's football also have male fans, and that we have both of men and women there. So there's so many great male allies. You have Amir Sanosi is doing a lot for women's, and also Ohanian, husband of he's now I lost his first name now for some
Alexis.
reason. Alexis Ohanian. He's doing so much for the women's game as well. So what is your opinion on the of male allies?
I think they're amazing. Don't forget, right, that I'm here talking to you as a woman, and I've been on the board of Lewes FC, and I'm still involved there. And usually on the board, I'm in a minority as a woman. And I have to tell, well, I nearly always am. But what I have to say is that Equality FC was started by male allies. It was started by men. Right. So this isn't this. And I think that's very, very important. This is a movement of male allyship. At its core, that's what it is, because it's in the world of football, which is totally male dominated. I might be a messenger, I might be customer zero, that's kind of come into football newly because of equality, but I didn't start it. And I think that's really, really important, because male allies, let me talk about male allies. We cannot have equality with just women. And one thing I love about Lewes FC is that we have the women's team and we have the men's team as well, right? Working together as one club. And they really, really do. I think because we live in a patriarchy where men have the power in terms of, you know, basically resources, money, space, and attention, because of that, well, and we have to acknowledge that, you know, it's men that have the power to create the changes we need to share the power more equally. Therefore, there's no point in women just talking to each other, or even a majority of women doing stuff. It has to be done together with men, and men actually have to lead the way in it. You know, that's what I believe. I don't, like, at Lewes FC, you know, we have a sisterships network of groups that empower women and girls in some way, that we have a mutually supportive relationship with, and these are very different groups, so each relationship is very bespoke. And when we had a spate of violence against women and girls in this country, listen, we have it all the time, but you know, we had a particularly high profile period of it in 2022, and the sisterships were all kind of talking to each other on social media. What can we do? How can we change? What do we need to do? You know, can't trust the police. We can't, you know, we can't always walk in light areas. You know, how do we know who to trust? And Lewes FC stepped in. Lewes FC men stepped in and said, it's us that need to change. It's not you. You know, you can't change this on your own. So they started the Call Him Out campaign, where they publicly pledged on Twitter to call out sexist or misogynistic language in themselves and others. You know, I pledged too, because even as a woman, I am sexist sometimes, you know, and it's we're all in this soup together. We're all, you know, we don't sometimes even know it or realize it when we say things that accidentally offend or exclude, and they lead to a certain view of women and men that eventually leads to rape culture in schools and violence on our streets. So yeah, I mean, male allies have a huge role to play, and you know, yes is my answer. Yes, they do, and they're amazing, and they're wonderful. And basically, you know, I wouldn't, you know, I don't have many friends that are men that aren't male allies. I think most of the men I know actually are. And I love them.
Of course. No, but I just felt like, you know, that's an important thing to point out as well, that, as you said, like, we're in this soup together. And because sometimes I feel like you talk about women's football, and then you think that everything is only women. They're only women fans. They're only female players. They're female coaches, like everything. And that's, you know, that's not what it is. The same way that men's football doesn't only involve men. There are women's fans, coaches, not as many as one would like, but, you know, it's blends together a bit. So
I think that's absolutely true. And I think, you know, more women in the men's game. We already have men in the women's game. But, you know, we need men at women's matches, women at men's matches. And then, you know, if we get, we're nowhere near that yet, but if we get to that stage where it's a complete crossover, we'll be able to say it's football. We won't be needing to say men's football, women's football, but we'd be able to say it's football. But I mean, at the moment, there's no way we can say that, because our society is so unequal, and these are two completely different products, and you know, the consumption of them is different, and the way that they're run is different. And do you know what? I hope it stays different at the moment as well.
Talking about the business side of women's football, what's your best advice for a woman who wants to pursue a business career in sports or women's football, for example?
My best advice for a woman who wants to pursue a career in football: be resilient. So what I've done is I've learned from the women players. No, they're much younger than me, but I've learned so much from them. You know, the way that they play the game and approach life because obviously our players, they play in the championship, so they play at elite level, and they've had to devote themselves to their sport. And you know, they have a great, most of the time have a great attitude of mind, and they are strong in the face of failure, and they're assertive, and they go for it, and they put their game face on. And these are all great qualities for the boardroom or for business. And so, yeah, I would definitely say resilience, maybe a sense of humor helps with resilience. You know, these things are crucial really to going into the industry.
That's good advice. Because yeah, as you mentioned it before, also, you know, the business opportunity for women's football is, you know, untapped. So I think it might have been Caroline Fitzgerald from Goal Sports, I think it was her, that said that the best time to invest in women's football was 20 years ago, and the second best time is right now. So I think that's you know, it says a lot, and I think it's a great career path, and I mean it's such an untapped an industry.
Listen, if you are interested in football, I would get into in the football business. I would get into women's football, because, you know, we need to shape it, and we need to help it achieve its full potential, and it has the chance. I mean, it has the chance to outstrip men's football. Right. And it has the chance to really wash its face, you know, so in business terms, to make profit rather than be a passion business, just, you know. So I think this is so true. And I say to people, I use the example of Coca-Cola, who, you know, in the 70s, they brought out, Coca-Cola had a massive market with Coca-Cola. And then they brought out this second product called Diet Coke. And everyone said, oh, no, why are you doing that? You've got a mature product here, is doing really, really well. And they said, no, but people, you know, like a choice. And this is a different product. And it wasn't long before Diet Coke was outstripping Coca-Cola. Right. So, I mean, you know, if you're in business and you have a mature product and a new potential product, put resources behind the potential one. The mature one's got a loyal market already. It's done its thing. You've got a new thing that you can shape, and you can really think about how are people consuming this? What identity are they carving for themselves out of this? And how can you help them do that? And, you know, when do they buy the merchandise? Because maybe in the men's game, you know, people just do it at half time, but in the women's game, they don't mind if they go, you know, during the match and buy some stuff from the shop, you know. So it's an interesting place to be right now. And yeah, I think it's a very exciting career path to embark on.
The women's football is the Coca-Cola light of the football industry.
Diet Coke, yeah,
Diet
the Diet
Coke
Coke of the football industry. I don't like the word light. It implies somehow lesser than, and we know that that's not the case.
Yes, for sure, for sure. We need to rebrand that.
Yeah.
Is there something I haven't asked you so far that you feel is important and you want to mention?
I don't know. Maybe you know, what I would mention is, because women's football is doing well, and that you know, crowds are filling stadiums, and you know, the Lionesses obviously won the Euros last year. That was amazing. The Women's World Cup's coming up, and you know, there's a lot of noise around how well women's football is doing. So what I would like to say is that it's not doing well enough, you know, because what we have noticed at Lewes FC is, you know, crowds are good, but they could be better. Well, of course, when we played Manchester United earlier this year in the FA Cup, we sold out. We went to extra capacity. But hey, wouldn't it be nice to be doing that every match in all of our usual league matches? You know, I really think we've got such a great product, but we still need to put more resource behind it. And I'm sure you'll hear this from anyone that's in women's football, put more resource behind it in order to really see it grow in the way that it can. And why the reason I'm so passionate about that is, yes, commercially it makes sense, and everyone wants to earn money, so it's a good thing. But I'm at a stage in life where I'm very concerned about legacy and what I can do to change the world and how I can help it so that things are better for the people that come after me. And I honestly think that women's football is the sooner we can make everybody that wants to be a women's football fan, the better, for humanity. That's what I honestly think.
Yeah, I love that.
It's just true.
A question that I always ask is, who in your network do you believe would be a great guest for this podcast?
Oh, yeah. Well, have you had Kelly Lindsay on the show yet?
No.
Okay. Well, I think that Kelly Lindsay, who's currently our head of performance at Lewes FC, would be a great candidate. And the reason I think that is she makes everybody that meets her feel like a champion. She just does. Yeah, I don't know how she does it, but she will make you feel like a champion, Marcus, and all of your listeners. So that's quite something for her to live up to, but I have no doubt that she will.
Yeah, you put the bar really high there.
Yeah, well, I should tell you a bit more. She has coached the Afghan women's team, right? And she exposed the sexual abuse scandal that was going on there. Amazing. She's coached the Moroccan national women's team. She set up a women's club in Hong Kong. She's played for US Women. She's an amazing person. And I think, get a bit of her wisdom on your show. She always tells me when I'm a bit like down or having a difficult day, she tells me, what's wrong with you? You're in a little corner of paradise here, Karen. You're in a corner of paradise. And then I remember that I am. So I think you should get her on the show.
That I will definitely try to do. Great advice or tip.
You're welcome.
Karen Dobres, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the Sports Management Podcast.
My pleasure. Nice to meet you.